Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You know how it is out there? Safety can get complicated, and sometimes OSHA regs feel like they're in a whole other language.
Right, like it's a secret code or something.
Yeah, but today we're going to try to decode one that's surprisingly relevant, but often overlooked. OSHA 1926.1050. It's all about stairways and ladders.
Stairways and ladders, seriously.
I know it sounds basic, right? But think about it. On any construction site, stairs and ladders are everywhere. People use them constantly without a second thought.
And that's where the danger comes in. Familiarity can lead to complacency, and complacency can lead to accidents.
Exactly. We're partnering with Safety One Source today to really break down 1926.1050 and why it matters for safety pros, even those who think they've seen it all.
You know, it's funny. So many people assume OSHA is only about those big dramatic hazards, like trench collapses or crane accidents.
Yeah, the Hollywood stuff.
Exactly. But the reality is it's often the little things, the everyday hazards that trip us up, literally in this case.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So what makes this 1926.105 so important, even for seasoned safety pros?
It's all about the scope. This regulation covers way more than just new construction. Think about it. Renovations, repairs, even something as simple as painting or decorating.
Wait, so even if you're just doing some touch-up work, you still have to worry about 1926.1050?
If a worker is using a ladder or stairway, chances are this regulation applies. It's about protecting workers throughout a structure's entire life cycle, not just during the initial build.
So it's not just about having stairways and ladders, it's about having the right ones in the right places at the right time.
Right, and that's where OSHA gets really specific. They don't just tell you what kind of stairways and ladders to have, they actually specify when they are required.
Okay, so no more improvising with stacked pallets or those rickety old step ladders I see gathering dust in the corner of the warehouse.
Nope. OSHA wants to see dedicated safe access equipment, no more shortcuts.
So I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed. Honestly, how can safety pros even begin to wrap their heads around all these details? I mean, there's only so many hours in a day.
Well, it all starts with understanding the basics. And in this case, that means mastering the definitions. OSHA 1926.1050 is full of very specific terminology. And if you don't know what those terms mean, you can't effectively implement the rules.
So it's definition time.
It is.
All right, but we don't want to bore everyone to death with a straight-up glossary recitation.
Agreed. How about we focus on some of the terms that often cause confusion or lead to safety shortcuts out in the field? You know, the ones that make you raise an eyebrow when you see them on a job site?
I like that approach. Let's do it. First up, equivalent. It seems straightforward enough, but I have a feeling there's more to it than meets the eye.
You're right. Equivalent means an employer can choose an alternative method for stairway or ladder safety, but, and this is huge, they have to prove to OSHA that their method is just as safe as what the regulations prescribe.
So it's not just about convenience or cutting corners.
Not at all. It's about demonstrating that you've achieved the same level of safety through a different approach. And you need to be able to back that up with evidence.
So no using a rickety old ladder just because it's kind of the same height as what OSHA recommends.
Exactly. You need to show it's been properly inspected, weight tested, the whole 9 yards. Documentation is key.
Yep.
If an inspector shows up, you better be able to prove that your equivalent solution truly is equivalent in terms of safety.
Right, point taken. Next term, fixed ladder. I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I'm guessing OSHA has some specific requirements here, too.
Oh, you bet. Think about a ladder that's permanently attached to a structure like one leading up to a rooftop hatch. You can't easily move it, so the focus is on fall protection. Things like cage guards or safety devices become mandatory at specific heights.
That's why you always see those cages on those super tall ladders.
Yeah.
It's not just to keep pigeons out.
Nope. It's about preventing falls, and OSHA has very specific rules about when those cages are required based on the ladder's height.
Okay. Starting to connect the dots here. It's amazing how much thought goes into something as seemingly simple as a ladder.
Right. And while we're talking about falls, let's tackle another term, unprotected sides and edges. This one's all about those height measurements that OSHA loves so much.
Yeah, those numbers can be a bit intimidating.
I know, but they're there for a reason. OSHA defines unprotected sides and edges as any area where a worker could fall more than 6 feet. Think about open-sided platforms, scaffolding edges of roofs. It all applies.
So a 6-foot drop is kind of the magic number where OSHA says, okay, we need some serious fall protection here.
Exactly, because even a fall from 6 feet can cause serious injuries. It's not something to take lightly.
All right, starting to see how these definitions, even though they might seem dry on paper, are actually the building blocks of a much safer work environment.
They absolutely are. Like the foundation of a house, you can't build a safe structure without them. Think of it like this. You wouldn't build a house without a solid foundation, right?
Yeah.
Well, these definitions are the foundation of a safe stairway and ladder program. They help you identify hazards, choose the right equipment, and create training that actually makes a difference out on the site.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get practical here. Let's say you're a safety pro walking onto a job site. Where do you even begin to apply all this OSHA knowledge?
First things first, observation. Take a good look around.
Huh?
Are there stairways with 4 or more risers? If so, do they have handrails on both sides? Are the landings big enough?
For people to move around safely.
Yeah, these are basic checks, but they can reveal a lot about a site's commitment to stairway safety.
So it's about being that hawk-eyed safety pro, spotting potential hazards before they become incidents.
You got it. And don't just focus on the obvious. Pay attention to details like handrail height. OSHA is really specific about that 30 to 37-inch range.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. Too high, and it's awkward to grip too low, and it's useless in a fall.
It's kind of like Goldilocks. You know, not too high, not too low.
Exactly. It's going to be just right.
It's amazing how much thought goes into something as simple as a handrail. But I guess that's why we have OSHA, to make sure those details aren't overlooked.
Absolutely. And that same attention to detail applies to ladders. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people using the wrong type of ladder for the job. Like a step ladder's not an extension ladder.
Right.
Each one has a purpose and a weight limit.
So no more standing on the top rung of a stepladder just to reach that last bit of paint.
Definitely not. And hey, speaking of ladder safety, let's bust a myth. That 4-to-1 rule isn't just some random number OSHA came up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's based on physics.
Oh, yeah, I remember that from high school.
Yeah.
The whole right triangle thing.
Exactly. The ladder's the hypotenuse, the wall's one leg, and the ground's the other. That 4-to-1 ratio makes for a stable base.
Prevents it from tipping over?
Exactly. And speaking of the base, you always want a firm level surface. You wouldn't build a house on sand, right?
Nope.
Well, setting up a ladder on soft ground or uneven terrain is asking for trouble.
It all comes back to physics, doesn't it?
It does. And that brings us to training. You know, it's one thing to know the OSHA regs, but it's another thing to actually apply them.
You can't just hand someone a copy of 1926.1050 and expect them to become a ladder safety expert overnight.
Exactly. It takes practice, experience, hands-on training.
Workers need to know how to choose the right ladder, inspect it for damage, set it up properly, and use it safely. That can't come from a book alone.
Yep, it's got to be real world.
It's about creating that culture of safety, where people aren't just following rules blindly, but they understand the why behind the rules so they can make safe decisions in any situation.
That's it. And that kind of culture, it doesn't happen overnight.
It's a process.
It is. It takes commitment from everyone top to bottom.
And speaking of commitment, I know Safety One Source is passionate about providing resources and training to help companies create that culture of safety.
We believe knowledge is power, and when it comes to safety, that knowledge can literally save lives. We offer all sorts of tools and programs to help companies implement and follow OSHA regulations, including 1926.1050.
So if any of our listeners are feeling a little overwhelmed by all this info, they're not alone. There's help out there.
Absolutely. We're here to help create safer workplaces for everyone.
That's great to hear. Now, we've talked a lot about the basics of OSHA compliance, but how can safety pros go above and beyond, to really elevate safety in their organizations?
That's where things get interesting. It's about being proactive. One strategy is to do regular job hazard analyses focused specifically on stairway and ladder use.
So not just inspecting the equipment, but actually looking at the task and how it's being done.
Right. Identify those hazards before they cause an incident. Like, let's say you've got a project that requires going up to a rooftop a lot. Maybe the fixed ladder is too short?
Oh, so people are having to reach up and over dangerously.
Exactly. And that's a recipe for a fall.
Okay. I see how that proactive approach can make a difference. It's about anticipating problems and finding solutions before anyone gets hurt.
Right. And once you've identified the hazards, you develop control measures. Well, in our rooftop example, maybe you install a taller ladder or add a grab bar or even come up with a completely different access method.
Makes sense.
It's all about continuous improvement, always assessing and adapting.
So safety is never really done. It's an ongoing process.
Exactly. The workplace is constantly changing.
Yeah.
So are the hazards? That's why you've got to stay up to date on the latest best practices and technologies.
Yeah, it's like they say, safety is a journey, not a destination. But staying on top of all that new stuff can be a tough job.
You're telling me. But that's where resources like Safety One Source can help.
Right.
We kind of keep our finger on the pulse of the industry so you don't have to.
Okay, so give us an example. What's something cool and new in stairway and ladder safety that's caught your eye?
Well, one area that's really exploding is fall protection systems.
Hmm.
We're moving away from those bulky harnesses, the one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we're moving towards more personalized, user-friendly solutions.
So less like climbing Mount Everest and more like something you'd actually want to wear on a job site all day.
Exactly. Think lightweight self-retracting lifelines or even smart harnesses that can detect a fall and automatically call for help.
Wow, that sounds straight out of sci-fi.
Yeah.
But it's real. It's happening now. It's amazing how technology is changing safety, even at this really basic level.
It is, and it's not just high-tech stuff either. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Like, there's this growing trend towards prefabricated stair towers and platforms.
Okay, I'm not sure I follow. What's so special about those?
They're designed for quick assembly, and they come with all the safety features built in handrails, toe boards, even integrated fall protection. It's like a stairway in a box.
Oh, so all the safety's already there. You don't have to worry about missing something.
Exactly. Less room for error, which means a safer work environment.
So it's about making safety easy and intuitive.
That's the goal. Make it so ingrained in the culture that it's second nature. People shouldn't have to think twice about climbing a ladder or going up some stairs.
Safety without the stress.
I like that. And it's possible. It takes effort and commitment and being open to new ideas, but the payoff is huge.
Well said. On that note, I want to thank Safety One Source for sponsoring this deep dive into stairway and ladder safety. I think our listeners got a lot out of it.
It was my pleasure. And remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. We can all make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So until next time, stay safe out there, folks.